everybody, to a post-game edition of the Glen Kuiper Show, All Giants, here on my YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and you're going to enjoy tonight's show a whole bunch, as all Giants fans are right now. Before we do that, though, I want to wish everybody a happy Father's Day, or all the fathers out there a happy Father's Day, and hope you're having a great day. So we're going to talk about the Devers trade. We're going to talk about some decisions the Giants are going to have to make in the next day, next 2 days, and down the road, even next couple weeks. Then we'll talk about today's game against the Dodgers, which the Giants lost. We'll talk about the series, but today's show obviously going to revolve around the huge, and I mean huge, news. This is massive, folks. If you just sit back and think about the player that the Giants have just acquired, it is huge. It is huge. This is as big of a trade that has been made in Major League Baseball in a while. Start thinking about Mookie Betts getting traded to the Dodgers. Trades like that, blockbuster deals, we like to call them. Well, Rafael Devers to the Giants for 4 players is a blockbuster deal, and unbelievable. That happened right before the start of tonight's game at Dodger Stadium. The news came out, and wow. I mean, it is all over the place on social media. Everybody's got their opinion on it. So we're going to talk about Devers. We're going to talk about how it affects the Giants moving forward, not just for a little while, but for a long, long time, as he has now become a cornerstone for this Giants organization. So what do we know about Rafael Devers? Well, anybody who's been following baseball, we all know about this guy. I think, and you even heard Clayton Kershaw say it tonight on the telecast. He had a headset on in the dugout, that he thinks he's a top 10 offensive player in baseball. And I agree. He's certainly at least a top 15 offensive player in Major League Baseball. That is how good this guy is. He's 28 years old. We know a left-handed hitter, 7 years in the major leagues. His numbers this year, 272. He's got 15 home runs. He's got 58 RBIs. The RBIs third most in the major leagues. He's got 18 doubles this year. And then stretching it out a little bit, on-base percentage of 401. That's 7th best in the major leagues. A slugging percentage of 504. So his OPS is 905, which is pretty darn good. In fact, only 13 players in the major leagues have an OPS over 900. And Devers is one of those guys. So those are the numbers from this year, just in general as a hitter. And we've obviously seen him, even though he was in the American League, but he walks a lot. He's got a high on-base percentage. He's not necessarily a guy who, I mean, he's going to strike out. He's a power hitter, but it's not at an alarming rate, which, we kind of know now what's an alarming rate when it comes to strikeouts. And Devers is not a guy who's going to punch out like a ridiculous amount. His career OPS, on-base percentage plus slugging percentage, is 858, which is very, very good. And listen, you get an OPS, anything over 800 is really, really good. So career OPS, way above that. So those are just some of the offensive numbers. You can look them up. Everybody can look them up. You're going to see it. He's had huge years. He's had over 50 doubles in a year. He's a huge home run hitter. He's a star, folks. He is a star, and he is going to be a San Francisco Giant for a whole bunch of more years. Now, let's get into why we think the Giants were able to consummate this deal. I think a couple things. Maybe the most important thing is the Giants were willing to take on his whole contract. And we'll talk about that contract in a moment. But there's no money, being exchanged. The Giants said, we know the contract. It's a massive contract. We'll take control of it all. We got it. We don't want any money back from you. So listen, if a team hears that, then you don't have to worry. If the Red Sox, they're saying, well, we don't have to worry about giving any money to the Giants. Said, we got it. If you're willing to talk to us about a deal for this guy, we'll take the whole contract. Okay. And as I said, we'll get into the numbers of the contract in a bit. But two, I think there's a lot of stories about Devers in Boston. They had some disagreements earlier this year, legitimate disagreements. I don't think the organization, the front office of the Red Sox, handled it great. I'm not sure Devers really handled it that great either. And there seemed to be some hard feelings. Bregman signed in the offseason. Devers wasn't happy about that. Took him off his position that he wants to play. That's third. I asked him to play first. So there was a lot of things going on. So, I think in reading some stuff today, I think it could be that Devers may have been a little unhappy in Boston. And that certainly worked in the Giants' favor. The Red Sox have a whole bunch of young talent. They got 3 or 4 really, really good young players that are, I think a couple of them are in the big leagues. And I think they want to build around those guys. So maybe the Red Sox felt like, well, if we can get out from under this much money, we have these terrific young players, young prospects. Maybe we shift gears. I think those things all kind of worked in the favor of the Giants. And let's not forget the Giants, and we've said this many times on the show, the Giants, one of their best assets is their pitching depth. They were able to offer the Red Sox a terrific young starting pitcher who I think has more upside than Kyle Harrison. I think Harrison he's decent right now, and I think he has a chance to get better. When you can say to a team, okay, let's start talking some players. We'll start with Kyle Harrison. Well, every team is going to say, oh, okay, well, we'll listen on Kyle Harrison. So I think all those things factored in, and even that, it still makes this deal getting done unbelievable, especially this time of year where it's the middle of June. And I put it out there on social media. Deals like this just don't get done in the middle of June. They just don't. This is an off-season kind of deal. This is maybe a trade deadline kind of deal, but to do it in the middle of June, got to give Buster and Zach and his guys, Jeremy, and you got to give these guys a ton of credit because they went out and they got really exactly what the Giants needed, a left-handed hitter and a guy who, again, I think is a top 10, top 15 offensive player in all of baseball. I mean, and I don't listen that's an opinion, and a lot of people have different opinions, but it would be hard to argue that he's not a top 15 offensive player. So let's get to the contract. So Devers is in the second year of a 10-year, $313 million deal. So this is a massive deal, folks. I mean, there's no question about it. It sounds like I've seen a couple things where obviously you can do the math, 10 years, 313 million. But it sounded like he's got, somewhere between $250 and $260 million left on that contract. There's no opt-outs. It's straight 10 years, 313 million. And again, this is the second year of that deal. So after this year, 8 more years, the contract runs through 2033. Giants are taking on all that money to make him a cornerstone. And, I remember when the Red Sox signed this deal with Rafael Devers, their thing was, well, we're going to make him the cornerstone of our franchise. When you give somebody that kind of contract, he becomes the cornerstone. But then a year and a half later, things weren't going that well in Boston, and the Giants jumped in. Giants saw an opportunity, a very, very rare opportunity to get a guy like that. And I mean rare. And they jumped on it. And and they made the deal. And I think what's interesting too is, I know people are going to be concerned about the length of the contract and the amount of money, and that's fine. I get all that. It's not our money, so let's not worry about it too much. But let's remember this: we have watched the Giants attempt to sign big time hitters in free agency. We all know the stories. Judge, Ohtani, Stanton, or trade for Stanton, Harper. We all know the story. And they have offered huge amounts of money, more money than what's left on this contract. In some cases, they may have offered Judge twice as much as what's left on this contract. Okay. So the point is the Giants were having trouble, and we're probably going to continue to have trouble to sign big name free agent hitters. They've seen it go happen now for what, 4, 5, 6 years. It's been an issue. So, what's another way to get a hitter? Trade. But how often does the possibility of acquiring somebody like Devers in a trade happen? Hardly ever. Hardly ever. You'd have to look long and hard. Even Mookie Betts, Mookie, he didn't have that huge contract when he got traded to the Dodgers. He signed that soon after he got traded to the Dodgers. And I think it was a 12-year deal or something huge. So I just think the Giants said, this thing about getting hitters here as free agents is an issue. It's an issue. You know, we may not agree with the hitters' thinking, but it's an issue. They were able to get Adames. They jumped on Adames. They gave him a huge contract, and he accepted it. But we've also seen what's happened with the Otanis and the Judges, and well chronicled, right? So they saw a shot to get a hitter a different way, and they jumped on it, and they got Rafael Devers. So let's talk about who left the Giants, right? I mean, hey, you got to give something up to get somebody like Devers. And they did. They gave up a lot. They gave up Kyle Harrison. We love Kyle. We all know his story. Bay Area kid, went to De La Salle. I think the upside with Harrison is huge. He's not a finished product yet, but he's getting there. And he's going to get a fresh start. You hate to see Kyle Harrison go. You knew that if the Giants were going to make a huge trade, and we all wanted him to, got to get a hitter. Well, we all said it. Whoever that hitter may be, if you're going to make an effort to get one, the trade was probably going to start with one of the Giants' young pitchers, Harrison, Birdsong, Roop, Wisenhunt. One of those four was going to have to go if you were going to get a middle of the order hitter in a trade. I think we all were aware of that. And it turns out in this case, it was Kyle Harrison. So Harrison is part of the deal. Jordan Hicks is part of the deal. And this is interesting. You know, we saw good things from Jordan Hicks. We also saw him struggle a lot. He got a big contract with the Giants. And this is part of the whole deal here. So Hicks, after this year, still had $22 million left on his contract. You got a 4-year deal. This was year 2 of a 4-year deal. So the Giants are getting out of that contract. So they get a little help financially there with Jordan Hicks. And Hicks, you know, man, there was so much upside there, and you just felt like there was more there. But I think they'll be okay without Jordan Hicks. He got bumped out of the rotation into the bullpen. He's on the injured list right now. So Harrison, Hicks, the Giants gave up last year's #1 draft pick. His name is James Tibbs III. He's a left-handed hitting outfielder. He was at High A Eugene and having a really good year. The kid was starting to hit home runs. He's got 12 home runs. Again, a high draft pick, pretty good looking hitter. Some of the numbers that jumped out, he's got a great, more walks than strikeouts. Again, but at High A Eugene, so a little ways from the big leagues if he were to get to the big leagues. And then they gave up a 20-year-old right-hander who's pitching in rookie league down in Arizona named Jose Bello. We don't know a lot about him. Again, he's only 20 years old. So you start to look like, okay, you knew you're going to take a hit losing Harrison, but you got other young pitchers. You got Carson Wisenhunt, you got Seymour. So there's that depth. We've talked tons about the pitching depth the Giants have. They're able to do that because they're able to trade Harrison because of this depth. Hicks, listen, you're getting some money back. You're saving $22 million on a guy that you just weren't sure where to put him. That's reality. You weren't sure what to do with Jordan Hicks. So that tells me that I don't know that you're going to miss Jordan Hicks. Tibbs, the Giants have a whole bunch of outfield prospects down in the minor leagues, lower minor leagues. They got a Dakota Jordan, they got a Carlos Gutierrez, they got a Lisbel Diaz in San Jose, all legitimate prospects. A long ways to go yet. They're raw, but that's just in San Jose. They got a really good looking hitter in Bo Davidson and Scott Bandura, a couple of left-handed hitters at High Eugene, where Tibbs was. But again, that's just in the lower minor leagues. In AAA, you got Matos, you got Luciano, you got Grant McCray, you got Wade Meckler. So they have quite a few outfield prospects, some in the lower levels and some very close to the big leagues, some guys that we've seen in the big leagues. So again, that's where you can you deal from a position of strength. And I think that's what the Giants did. So I always ask myself when a trade like this happens, and this is nothing against the guys that were traded. Of that group, when you go to a Giants game, whether it be this year or 3 years down the road, of that group, who are you, the group that got traded, who are you going to miss? Are you going to say, oh my gosh, Jordan Hicks is gone? What are we going to do? Are you going to say, oh man, can't believe Tibbs isn't here? We don't know anything about Bello. He may be a Cy Young. I don't know. We may say, Kyle Harrison, hey, he's pretty good. But you got a middle of the order hitter who's been an all-star 3 times, who's been a silver slugger twice in his 7-year major league career, who's going to sit right in the middle of your lineup for the next 8 years. The next 8 years. So look at the trade however you want. I'm just kind of giving you some guardrails here on who he is, how they were able to get him, what responsibility they have contractually, and who they gave up. And I'll let you make your own decisions on this trade. And feel free, throw a question. Ryan, the producer's got an eye on the questions. I'll check over here on the comments section if I can. But here's Daniel S. Tibbs doesn't worry me, but Harrison's upside scares me. Fair, very fair. You got Rafael Devers for 8 years in the middle of your lineup. Kyle Harrison, and I hope he does. I really do, because I like Kyle a lot. I know his family. They're good people. I hope he wins a Cy Young. I really do. I hope he goes to Boston and just deals. But when Rafael Devers is doing what we think he's going to do, and that's anchor a lineup for a long time, are you really going to just miss Kyle Harrison? And that's not a criticism. That's just reality. I don't think so. I just don't think so. So like I said, that's my opinion on this whole thing. It's just, to me, it's hard to find a negative about this deal, except maybe the length of contract. But that's the price you pay. That's the price you pay. You're going to have Devers a long time. In the last 2 or 3 years of the contract, when he's maybe 35, 36, 37, you know what? The contract may not look great, but the first 5 or 6 years are probably going to look pretty good, because he's still only 28 years old. This is a player right in the middle of his prime. So that's my look at this trade. And again, give me your comments, give me your questions, and like I said, I'll do my best to keep an eye on them. This is a good one. Bob Best said, revenge. It's the revenge for the Orlando Cepeda for Ray Sadecki trade. Well, yeah, the Giants, old-time Giants fans still talk about that trade. And then Orlando, of course, had to go to St. Louis and win an MVP. So now I'm going to move on to the next section of the show. And it's about the Devers trade and how some of the decisions now come into play because of this trade. Because now there's some moving parts, right? So the question here is, and think about these questions, and these are decisions that the Giants front office will have to make, and the coaching staff will have to make. But with Devers, I think he's just going to stay at DH, but I could be wrong. But I know a lot of people have commented like, well, maybe he'll play third base till Chapman's back. I don't know how much Devers has been working out at third base. I don't know how much Devers has been working out at first base. I don't know. That's going to be an interesting question. I think he stays at DH. I do. Maybe down the road, maybe next year. Maybe Devers says, I'll play first base. And I know Eldridge, I get all that, but Bryce Eldridge is still 20 years old. So that's kind of a question about third base for right now, and for first base probably into the future. But I still think Devers is here to DH, even if it was a short-term thing at third base with Chapman coming back in hopefully 2 to 3 weeks. But so that that's a question that's a decision that needs to be made by Devers. And is he just DH? Does he play third for a little while? Does he think about playing first this year and maybe into the future a little bit? And he and Eldridge, whatever you get, we're not going to complain about having both those guys. Is it a Dom Smith, Wilmer Flores? They got first base covered now, and we're just going to let Devers DH, and we'll let Casey Schmidt play third. Is that the way it's going to roll until Chapman gets back? I think that's probably what's going to happen, but that's just my guess. But clearly, Wilmer Flores is going to lose some at bats. The DH spot, if that is where Devers plays every day, Wilmer's going to lose some at bats. He'll get some time at first base. But what it does is Wilmer's still going to get his at bats. He just, it's not going to be as many, but it strengthens your bench. And you think about looking ahead a little bit, if you got a struggling, Bailey struggling, Fitzgerald struggling, if you got a struggling hitter and it's late in the game, you have Wilmer on your bench to pinch hit, and that's a huge asset to have. So all is not lost with Wilmer Flores, but he is probably the guy that's going to lose some at bats. And then somebody's got to go. Roster spot. Somebody's got to go. They're going to put Devers on the roster. Is it Encarnacion? His positions, DH. There's probably not going to be any spots there. First base. I don't know that there's any innings there for Encarnacion now. And he can play the outfield. So is he on the bubble here? Probably. What about Daniel Johnson, left-handed hitter? Johnson, very good outfielder and can play center field, and he's got some speed. So that's a roster decision that the Giants will have to make by Tuesday night. But somebody's going to have to go. Is it just simply either Encarnacion or Johnson? That's what it looks like on the surface. But there could be, the Giants could be looking at it in a different way. But certainly you have Devers, Dominic Smith, Wilmer Flores in that DH first base spot. And we'll see if Devers plays any third base with Chapman out. I don't know. We'll see. But that again, a decision or a couple decisions that the Giants are going to have to make pertaining to this trade and what their roster is going to look like. Another kind of decision, maybe not a decision, but a possibility that I thought about is that even with Devers, is Dominic Smith potentially I don't want to say the answer, because that, that's sort of like, well, then he's the guy. But I think Dominic Smith still has a very good chance to be an important part of this team. He's been pretty good. I mean, it's very, very, very short term here. He's only played in 11 games, but he hit the cleanup spot tonight. He walked a couple times, but he's done a nice job. And again, Dominic Smith's not an old player. He's 30 years old. and he's had some success in the big league. So I think we'll see more of him. And could he be the answer this year at first base, maybe with a nice platoon with Wilmer? Get him in there late in the game because he's good defensive first baseman. Or does Devers take any innings at first base from him? I don't know. But I think let's not forget about Dominic Smith, because he's done a nice job in a very short time. And I think he's very, very much part of this whole thing. Giants have been short on left-handed hitters all year. And, if Smith is producing and now you have Devers, you can hit Smith later, down in the lineup a little bit. And then I think he has a chance to be even more dangerous for the Giants. So let's not just forget about Dominic Smith, because I think he has a pretty good chance to be part of this whole thing moving on. And then, the question really got answered. Justin Verlander is going to come back this week. He's going to get back in the rotation. I have not seen an actual day when he'll be back, but it very well could be in this Guardian series coming up Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And, before this trade, the big decision, and that's kind of what we're kicking around here for the Giants, was, well, which pitcher is coming out of the rotation? Is it Harrison? Is it Roop? Is it Birdsong? One of those guys was going to probably go to the bullpen, or maybe dip back down to the minor leagues, but they were, Birdsong and Harrison had spent some time in the bullpen. So that was going to be a big decision. Which one of those three young pitchers is being taken out of the rotation for Verlander? Well, we don't need an answer to that because it got answered with the trade. Harrison is obviously gone. Verlander pops in. So you're going to go forward now when Verlander does get back, and it should be this week, with Webb, Ray, Verlander, Birdsong, and Roop. And you still have the depth in AAA with Wisenhunt's ready. Wisenhunt is just waiting for a call. If any of those guys that I mentioned, the five guys in the rotation, if any of those guys go down, you're going to see Wisenhunt. So there's that depth again. And Carson Seymour's done a nice job too. Carson Seymour's a right-hander, Wisenhunt a left-hander. So, Roop's innings, we got to keep an eye on that. So those two guys down in AAA are still very valuable, and they still have a chance to very much help this rotation, at some point this year. But that is what's going to happen when Verlander comes back. The Giants don't need to take anybody out of the rotation because Harrison out, of course, with the trade. So that was a decision that got answered, with this trade. And the last idea I want to kick around, and I think this is another decision the Giants have to start thinking about. And Casey Schmidt, fouled the ball off his leg today, or his foot. And they came out of the game, so we don't know how serious this is. The Giants do have a day off tomorrow. But got me thinking, Schmidt has done a good job. A couple of grand slams, obviously. He's swinging the bat better. I think his at-bats, he looks a little better at the plate to me. He's a very good defensive player. We saw him adjust to first base quickly. And he watch him play first now. He's pretty good. With that in mind, when Matt Chapman comes back, and that's, hopefully 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it could be a little bit longer. We're not sure, but that's a big deal. Until then, if Schmidt is okay, he's going to have, I think, maybe 2 or 3 weeks to see if the at-bats continue to be good. Okay. And if they continue to be good and he's getting playing time every day at third base, if Tyler Fitzgerald continues to struggle, and it has been a struggle for Fitzy, and it's too bad because he just can't seem to get things rolling. Last year, 15 homers, 19 doubles, 17 steals. He did all of that in how many games did he play? 96 games last year. Those are pretty good numbers for, a little more than half a season. And that's what got him a regular job going into this year. But this year, all the numbers are down. He's played in 51 games before tonight. He did have a double tonight, but his batting average is down 42 points from last year. His OPS is down 202 points from last year. So we just haven't seen the offensive player that Tyler Fitzgerald was last year. We have not seen that this year. So the decision, again, that the Giants may have to think about here is if Casey Schmidt continues to swing the bat, do they start taking a look at Schmidt at second base when Chapman comes back? And can Schmidt play second base? Because Fitzgerald is a very good defensive second baseman. He's done a nice job. He turns the double play well. And that's part of this whole thing. Schmidt would have to show the Giants that he's an above average second baseman defensively, because Fitzgerald is. But I think that second base situation is going to be something that the Giants are probably going to have to look at if Schmidt continues to make the improvements that it looks like he's making offensively. And can Schmidt get to the second base defensively where he's fine and he's above average? That's something to watch for the next 2 or 3 weeks until Chapman is back. And hopefully that's, as soon as we can expect, but we just don't know that yet. So that's some of the questions and decisions the Giants are going to have to make surrounding this huge trade, which saw them acquire Rafael Devers. So some of those decisions are going to happen in the next 24 to 48 hours. Some are 2-3 weeks down the road. Some may be, next year. Where does Devers play? But we're going to find all that out. Let's look at some questions before we move on to a couple other things. Let's see. My good friend Dan Coach Emilio says Encarnacion is out of options. That's a good point, Dan. And we know Dan well. We've done shows together. He's terrific on YouTube. Yeah. So if you let Encarnacion go, if you try to send him down and he's out of options, well, then he gets exposed to all the other teams. And I think somebody would probably grab him. So that's a great point, Dan, because that may keep him in the big leagues because you don't want to lose the guy. And there's probably a decent chance that somebody would grab him. That's the whole, how many options do I have left? And in his case, he doesn't have any. So very interesting, good point. Bake the Dough says that he thinks Encarnacion looks bad and Johnson offers more tools. Well, Johnson offers the speed part of it. And the thing with Encarnacion is now his skill set is a little redundant because he's a DH first baseman and he does play right field. But you have Smith and you have Wilmer and you also have Casey Schmidt, who does a really nice job at first base. So that's, I think, the only issue with Encarnacion is where are at bats and innings on the defensive side, where are they going to come from for Encarnacion? So, that's an issue, I think, in when it comes to decision time. So let's see. Ibrahim says, I still can't believe the Giants have Devers. I think that there are many, many Giants fans that feel the same. I'm a little in shock, to be honest with you. When I saw it today, and it's funny, our producer Ryan, who's listening right now, he's tremendous at his job. He texted me and said, Giants finally got a star. And I was like, what? Well, what? I started looking at my phone and I was thinking, wait, star. Okay. That means they made a trade. So Ryan tipped me off of this whole thing. And then you start looking around and you're just like, wow, I can't believe it. So good stuff. But before we go on to today's game and the series and wrap up the show, this is something to think about, Giants fans. We wanted to have players that were going to stay with the Giants and we could go buy a jersey and we knew they were going to be there. And that wasn't always the case, in recent years. Well, folks, there's jerseys you can go buy now, and I'm going to tell you why. Listen to the commitments, the contractual commitments, and how long before these specific core players for the Giants could leave in free agency. It's 2025. Okay. Rafael Devers is signed through 2033. He's going to be here a while. Willie Adames is signed through 2031. He's going to be here a while. Matt Chapman is signed through 2030. Jung-Hoo Lee is signed through 2029. Okay. Elliot Ramos, he is under Giants control contractually through 2029. Patrick Bailey, your Gold Glove catcher who's on the injured list, he is under Giants contractual control through 2029. Same thing with Fitz. And you have a top prospect in AAA, Bryce Eldridge, who's 20 years old. And your pitching staff, outside of Verlander and Rogers, none of those guys are free agents. So, but my point here is with the position players, okay? So you have Devers, Adames, Chapman, Lee, Ramos, Bailey, and Fitz. They're all at least contractually stuck to the Giants through 2029. And Devers, Adames, Chapman, further than that. This is your core group of players now, Giants fans. Let's hope that they produce. Because if they don't, then you're stuck with them. But these are really good players with a great track record. So think about that. You know, you got a pretty good idea who's going to be in your lineup. At least 6 or 7 of the guys. These guys are going to be here for a long time. And I think that's what fans like, as long as that group is successful, right? That's the most important thing. But from a fan's perspective, you know that these guys are going to be Giants for a long time. You're going to be cheering for these guys. There's going to be things that they do that are going to drive you crazy. There's going to be good things that they do that are going to make you cheer wildly. But this is your group. This is your group. And there's a lot of talent. And you're going to take Rafael Devers and you're going to set him right in the middle. Right in the middle of your lineup between Lee and Adames and Chapman and Ramos. That's not bad. That's not bad. Adam Pena says, will the Giants finally get a batter that gets at least 30 home runs in a season now? Well, let's hope so. Let's hope so. It's been a while. With Barry Bonds in 04, I think that's the stat that we keep throwing out there. Well, Devers, what does Devers have? 15? Devers today hit his 15th home run against the Yankees and then found out he's a San Francisco Giant. So think about the future, Giants fans. These are your guys. These are your core offensive position players. They're not going anywhere. And I'd be happy about that. All right, that's enough about the Devers trade. It's a big deal. We're all excited, and let's hope it works out, and let's hope he comes in. And if he's the Rafael Devers we saw in Boston, it's a huge, huge, huge deal for the San Francisco Giants. Now, today, there was a late afternoon game, Sunday night special. Dodgers win 5-4. It was a weird game. Like, right before the game, this news hits, and you're still into the game, but you just almost like, well, if they lose, I don't care. I'm still in a good mood. But they did lose today, unfortunately. Bad pitch, one, Ryan Walker, a hanging slider to the young center fielder, Andy Pius from the Dodgers, who's having a terrific year, and he banged a 3-run homer. 5th inning, it came with 2 outs, 2-out, 3-run homer, and that gave the Dodgers the lead, and they held on 5-4. So Giants got a good win on Friday night, 6-2, got dumped on yesterday and then lose today. So the first series of the year between the Giants and the Dodgers, Giants lose 2 out of 3. Um, 10 games left though with LA this year. Remember, they only play each other 13 times yet, so or 13 times each year now with the different schedule. But 6 games at Oracle Park between the Giants and the Dodgers, and then there's a 4-game series at Dodger Stadium the second to the last weekend of the year. So Dodgers will be in San Francisco July 11th through the 13th. That's the next time we'll see LA. But the thing that stands out to me with the Dodgers, folks, is their offense and their lineup is it's got to be the best in baseball. Statistically, it is. But if you just look at the names and the production, I don't think there's to me there's not a lot of doubt that it is the best lineup in baseball. I mean, just in the National League, they lead the National League in average runs, home runs, on base percentage, slugging percentage, which obviously means they lead in OPS. It's a terrific offensive team. It just really is. And you're going to have to deal with it. Giants are going to have to deal with it all year. They're going to have to deal with it next year. And the Dodgers are always going to be good because they just have these terrific players and they're all signed long-term. And it's just the reality of it. And that offense is so good that it can win with a pitching staff that has been a little inconsistent and has really been banged up. That just kind of tells you, how good this offense is. So it's what you're going to have to deal with the Dodgers. But Giants lose 2 out of 3 at Dodger Stadium. The road trip, let's not forget, they started in Denver. So the Giants go 3-3 on the road trip. When they left on Sunday night for Denver, they were 1 game back in the National League West. When they come home from Los Angeles tonight, they are 2 games back in the National League West. So that is what had happened on the road trip. The offense was pretty good on the road trip. In fact, I added up the total runs scored. They scored 34 runs, or I take that back. They scored 39 runs in the 6 games. So the offense was pretty good. Pitching was not great. Pitching got knocked around a little bit. But, they're going to get a day off tomorrow. And then at home with the new addition of Rafael Devers. So right now, 41-31, 2 games back of the Dodgers in the National League West. The Padres are 3 back, and the Giants own the number 2 wild card spot. So that is where the Giants are at after 72 games of this 2025 season. Up next, the Guardians will be in town Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at Oracle Park, and then the Boston Red Sox. That's right, the Red Sox will be here over the weekend. So that's the upcoming homestand for the Giants. And let's hope that on Tuesday night, Rafael Devers is here and he's in the lineup. I would imagine that will indeed be the case. So let me check on a couple more questions or a couple more comments, and then we'll get the heck out of here. Will the Giants finally get a batter? Yeah, we read that one. Here's from Bake the Dough again. Aside from baseball aspect and numbers, what does this move say about Posey, the executive, and his approach? I think it's a great question. Buster, he's going to get a lot of credit for this, but he deserves a lot of credit. I mean, it is not easy, folks. And Zach Managian, a lot of credit too. And again, all the guys that work for Buster, Jeremy Shelley, these guys are terrific. They get it. But I can't even tell you how difficult it is to pull off a trade like this in the middle of June. It's almost impossible. You can look back. Tell me a blockbuster trade like this that was made a month and a half before the trade deadline. It hardly ever happens. So to do that, you got to be sharp and you got to be able to talk to some people and get a thing and get this done. And it's not just Buster, it's the whole group. But they saw an opportunity, and I got a little bit of an idea how these things work. I don't know if it's with every team. I think it probably is. But when you're talking about a deal of this magnitude financially, okay, and again, you're talking about a guy who's owed $255 million left on his contract. Buster and Zach, they have to get that okayed by somebody. Whoever whoever they go to with the numbers, they can't just do the deal and not worry about the number. It's somewhere along the line they're going to say, okay, we're taking on a huge amount of money. We need to get the okay to do that. They must have got the okay to do it from somebody. So give Giants ownership credit. I think people like to criticize that ownership group, which, that's your right, I guess. But the Giants have spent money in the past, and they opened it up today. They opened it up, big time. And they do. You have to give them credit for that. I thought too, I looked this up, thought it was interesting about the Giants payroll, and I'm just looking at it because of the difference of what it was last year to this year. Last year, the Giants payroll was, and the payroll numbers come from, different areas, different websites, but the estimated Giants payroll last year was $206 million. The estimated payroll this year is $174 million. Now, that's not the number that's used for the CBA and the taxes and all that. But you think about that, $206 million last year, $174 million this year. So they spent less, even though Adames got big money, but they had money coming off the books with contracts that expired. But that's a $31 million difference in payroll from last year to this year. Less this year, believe it or not. And again, there's different factors that come into play with payrolls, and you may owe, a team money from a guy you traded. And so this is just your real basic payroll numbers. But still, the point is they spent more money last year than they did this year. Maybe that helped ownership say, yeah, you know what, we can do this. This is a player we need, and we're willing to we're willing to take it on, take on a huge amount. Again, somebody had to okay it, and the Giants ownership okayed it. And let's make sure, Giants fans, give them credit for that, because they get criticized sometimes. Give them credit for saying, we're good. We'll take on $255 million. It's not an easy yes, I'm sure, but somebody high above did that, and I think Giants fans everywhere are glad that they did. So that's it for tonight's show. Busy, but what a day for the Giants organization. It doesn't happen very often, folks. I can't say it enough. To make a deal like this, give the boys in the front office credit, give the ownership credit for taking on the money. This is a massive deal. A star offensive player, Rafael Devers, coming to the San Francisco Giants, not as a rental, not as a one-year guy, but as a cornerstone who has 8 years left on his contract. Terrific player, folks. I think you're going to really enjoy it. And don't worry about Oracle Park. This guy can hit anywhere. Hope you enjoyed the show, everybody. Again, have a happy Father's Day. Hit that subscribe button. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. I like to read the comments. But I'm Glen Kuiper, and thanks again for joining us tonight on the Glen Kuiper Show. All Giants, make sure you follow me on X, formerly Twitter. We know that one. It's at Kuiper Baseball. I'm at Glen Kuiper on Instagram as well. So thanks again. We'll see you later on this week with another live edition of the Glen Kuiper Show. All Giants. Have a good one, everybody.